We're getting things started a little bit early. Uh, had a got a few things going on, so I figured it's about 5 minutes early. So have to excuse that. The APU kicked on. Got a few things I want to talk about tonight. For some reason, the whole flip flop thing has come back. I don't know why. Basic math, because apparently everybody forgot it, and just basic professionalism. There seems to be a resurgence of that lately, or people talking about it. I'm not going to go too deep into a lot of that, but it's coming back. The guys are talking about it, and I think a lot of guys have the general core concept down, but they're missing a point. It's like it's a very narrow scope that they're looking through. They're not seeing the bigger picture. They're just seeing it from, basically a portal window like that. And so hopefully I can address some of that. And where a lot of this stuff came from. Basically, I'm gonna do Q&A tonight for anybody who's watching. I prefer to do that. I do a lot of Q&A when people. But we're just getting going here. I'm going to wait a couple of minutes because I said I was going to start at 7. But I'll answer some questions if anybody's got them early. So we're up here in Sioux Falls tonight. I've been doing a restart. I showed up yesterday with about an hour left on my 70, and I picked up 3 hours and something, so I got 5 hours and 30 minutes on my 70 because, well, apparently I'm a beast on the road. Not really. Like I said, I've been watching a few videos lately, and professionalism is something that we're really sorely lacking, but not in the way you think. Everybody's got to start somewhere, and if there's nobody there to mentor you and nobody there to show you the ropes or the rules, you're not gonna know it, and then you get what we get. But a lot of it that's going on right now is just basic, just laziness, honestly. What the hell? Yeah, too many people wandering around the truck right now. But I'm going to start off, and I'll get this out of the way. The whole flip-flop thing. There was 2 things that started that. Back when I started driving, yeah, your DOT cards, you could get those out of a cereal box. I mean, they were easy. Pay the guy enough money, it didn't matter who you were. He writes you up. You're just a guy, gave him $80. He filled you out, gave you a 2-year, you were gone. And it started being a real problem with a lot of these guys started getting so fat that they quite literally couldn't get into the sleepers of the trucks. You had guys that would be sleeping in the driver's seat because they couldn't physically fit into the back. And they were so big that they wore sweatpants and flip-flops, and that's where a lot of that genre came from. One of the places. The other one was a lot more disgusting. It started off with a bunch of unprofessional, filthy people from a very Middle Eastern country who would wear them and be washing their feet in the sink at the truck stops. It was disgusting. You'd go walk in there and they would be just washing their feet in the sink, the same one you're trying to wash your hands in or fill up. They're the same people that take water bottles into the toilets. That's where all that came from. very, very disgusting, very unprofessional, and it's just how it is. Now I'll make a distinction here. The Sikhs, the people from India, never had a problem with them. For the most part, the Sikhs were very clean, kept to themselves, kept their trucks up, and never had a problem with them. It was just the other ones. And we're starting to see a resurgence of that again with a lot of unlicensed drivers hauling freight in box vans now. And so that's starting to be a problem again. Kind of like with the 3-car haulers, because they'll start hauling freight on a regular county tags with no CDLs, or they'll rent a rider truck and start hauling freight in it. That's been a problem. So that's where that came from. It's not that a lot of these guys are making fun of the footwear. And I'm not going to lie, if I see you in a truck stop wearing Crocs, I'm probably going to make fun of you. I'm not going to lie. I heard they're comfortable. I will never own a pair. I just can't bring it. I just can't do it. But I've heard people say they're really comfortable, but I just won't do that in the truck. So that and they really are. I was sitting there doing some math, and I've been trying to find a couple copies of some leases that I have hidden around in the room. And my feelings on. I got a very dark place for not lease operator. I don't have any problem with the drivers. These guys are trying to make it go. They're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to own a truck. They're trying to be their own boss. Nothing but respect for that. The companies, on the other hand, and like I've said, it's for the most part, leases are predatory as far as I'm concerned. But a calculator would have kept a lot of these guys out of trouble. I was sitting there watching a guy online talking about his lease. Guy pays $875 a week for the truck alone. I did the math. For 4 years for that Freightliner, he's going to pay $89,000. Now, I looked up the MSRP on a brand new Freightliner, nicely equipped, and they're right at about $189,000, $190,000. So, well, okay, 4 years. Now, here's a dirty little secret. When these companies go and buy these trucks, when these fleets buy these trucks, these fleets get fleet pricing. They knock $20,000 off that price, so they're not paying $189,000. That's MSRP. These guys are buying 20 and 30 trucks at a time. They are getting them for around $160,000. So you're already paying almost $30,000 more than they bought it for. And then 4 years later, you have a balloon payment. And the balloon payment is around $40,000 to $45,000 now. And I looked at the price of a used Freightliner that's 4 years old, and it's $40,000 on the average, between $40,000 and $50,000. So you bought the truck twice. And to me, the math just doesn't make sense. And yes, I people with no money down or bad credit, that's I get it, why they do it. But I wish the companies would make them drive for a year and kind of do a trial run before they would lease them trucks, so at least they know what they're into. And then have a clear path to victory for that truck. I think if you really wanted guys to lease trucks, train them along the way how you want to do, show them the ropes, be straight up, and then, give them a clear path after a certain amount of time. And no balloon payment. That's just highway robbery. That right there just aggravates the crap out of me. just, oh, that makes me, that it chaps me pretty bad. It's, I just, yeah. And like I said, I've heard this from a couple of different people, in fact, talking about leases. They were not allowed to take the lease out of the office. They had one day to read it over and sign it. And I've heard multiple guys say this, and I've heard lawyers say flat out. I remember a lawyer said it would take a lawyer 2 weeks to go through that lease line by line to hammer it out. Now, these companies, when they write these leases up, they have lawyers write them up. So why can't you have a lawyer read the lease? If they had lawyers read the lease, nobody ever leased a truck. And a buddy of mine, when he was signing a lease, he had a question. Well, they wouldn't give him the lease back. They just gave him a photocopied printout of the section he was looking at. He couldn't take it to the hotel room to read it and go over. He couldn't leave. I mean, which is odd, because once you sign it and have the truck, you're required to have a copy of that lease in your bill book. But it's just ludicrous. Now, like I said, I've talked about this to death. I did get the clutch fixed. As you see, we're in the truck. I just finished doing a video on that, which is going to come out soon. It was a little more pricier than the estimate, but I kind of figured it would be. But it wasn't bad. By comparison, we got the truck fixed. Had a few while you're in there things fixed too, and the rear pinion seal. It was shocking how much better the truck handled once I got it done. It was slipping a lot longer than I thought. What we found out what happened was, well, not only was it at the very last bit of adjustment, but on these solo clutches, they have a habit of just a lot of dirt and debris and clutch dust gets up there, and it will lock up the clutch brake, and that's actually what happened. So I had several problems going on at once, and I'd already had it inspected like a week prior to that by the mechanic at the shop, and he was like, "Yeah, you're towards the end here, guy." I was like, "Really?" He goes, "Yep." So I was towards the end, so I just decided that I could have taken off and saved a bit of money, but I told him flat out, I said, if I do that, I'm probably going to be back here in a month or two. What's that? Trying to read that. Oh, this is about the lights. There was I know a lot of guys got those dual revolution lights. The comment about the lights, that was on something I'd commented on before. One of the problems we're having with lights on trucks now is they're starting to get in all sorts of different colors on all different sides of the vehicle. And one of the problems that guys are putting off-road lights on the trucks now, and those big long bars, if they're not DOT approved, they're not legal. And basically KC lights are not DOT approved. One of the problems I've been having too is these Ford and Chevy pickups. These guys get these four-wheel drives and they put leveling kits on them. And our truck drivers will attest going down the road and you got these Ford and Chevy just getting blinded. And their brights aren't on. So what actually happening is they're misaligned. Well, you're like, well, no, these lights have automatic levelers. Well, they do. However, when you put a leveling kit in it, you also have to re-level the lights. And they don't do that. They don't think about things like that. So you just go down the road blinding everybody and basically making everybody hate you. But yeah, I've been running into a lot of guys with those LED light bars on the front of their trucks, just blinding everybody, putting off-road lights, using those as driving lights. And one of the other things I've been noticing as a trend is it seems a lot of people driving with their brights on. It's just ridiculous. Even during the daytime, the lights underneath the trucks, I know that I'd have to read up the rules on them. I know that there's certain rules pertaining them. I know they can't be red or blue. I know that for sure. I think, like when you see a lot of the guys with the white lights and stuff, those are legal. I think that since they're not, and I'd have to check this out, since they're not projecting. I do know that back when I was a kid, one of the big things we used to have were those neons around our license plate frames, and those were illegal because they would light up and then black out the plate. I also used to get pulled over all the time. I discovered that if I put a very fine mist of primer across my license plate, it would take all the reflectivity out of it. And so if the cops would sit there and hit it with the light, the plate would black out. I got pulled over every week for a year and a half. Those cops knew who I was, but it'd be the same thing twice a week. Literally. A good dealership to buy. Well, that's a hard call. A lot of guys like Rush. A lot of guys hate Rush. GTC is kind of getting to be pretty big. They got Peterbilt dealerships all over the Midwest now. Rush is all over the country. There's I sit there and would prefer to buy a truck from a dealer that, in Chicago. I would probably go with Rush in Chicago, honestly. I would buy from a name brand dealer, and the only reason I say I'd buy from a name brand dealer is because you have nationwide coverage. A Peterbilt is a Peterbilt is a Peterbilt. If you buy from a dealership, even if you buy from Rush, I can still go to any pack car dealer and get it fixed, and my record's there, and your accounts are there, and whatever else you do. I know. I think Rush is pretty big in Chicago. I'd have to check. Rush does about everything, but it would all depend on what kind of truck you want to buy. Truthfully, if you're buying a Peterbilt, I'd rather buy it from a Pete dealer than an international dealer. But it's just doing your homework. Yeah, a lot of people. I've seen a lot of trucks go through the Larson Group. Now you gotta laugh. Pedigree is actually Prime's outlet, and I see a lot. They sell a lot of equipment. I don't know what shape it's in, but I think if you can, I think as long as you can get nationwide coverage and support for your truck, a good dealer's a good dealer. Like you said, it doesn't matter which dealer you go to. Somebody's going to love it and somebody's going to hate it. So just go in there, shop, talk to the salesman, and then you'll get a feel for it. Just don't be in a hurry to buy. It's not really, if you get in a hurry to buy, they're going to see that, and they're going to thrust the biggest POS on you in the lot just to get it off their lot, and then sell you a warranty, and you're gonna have to fight to get it fixed. A buddy of mine's going through that right now. Bought a truck. Turns out it was a lemon, and he's sitting there fighting warranty with it right now. He's got some blow by. He's got a little rattling. Things are just not well. Turns out this truck sat on the lot for about 1.5 2 years that he didn't know about. It's just been kind of a calamity to get going, and he has to deal with the warranty now. He has to deal with the warranty now. So what happens with the warranty is you have to play the long game. You have to play the long game. You have to play it by their rules. So it gets kind of weird. Once you start a warranty claim, or once you've got a problem, you basically, everything gets suspended. So you have to play the game rigidly per their rules, because, well, they're the one that made up the rules. So you got to be real careful with that. And I told him, I was like, no matter what happens, I said, don't put anything in the oil like Lucas. Don't put anything, or any kind of stop leak, or any kind of this, or any kind of that. I said, if they say it's fine and warranty is noted and it all goes like this, I said, just drive it. I said, that's all you can do. And if you notice a problem and something serious, the stop engine light comes on, stop, get it towed in, and have them do it again. And it's probably going to take 6 times. And chances are he's probably going to have to blow his engine up before they fix it. Warranties are weird like that. So you just kind of have to, like I said, you have to play the game when it comes to warranty. I'll tell you what, you're not going to get a Cummins in a Freightliner anymore. The 660s and 680s are starting to be pretty cheap now. The Freightliners are real affordable, especially for a guy starting out. I looked at a very, very nicely equipped one when I was looking for a truck. It was an owner-operator spec. It was beautiful. It was gray with black accents. It had a DD16 in it. It had a little longer frame. It had the camera set up on it. It had 315,000 miles on it. But it was an automatic. And I've talked about that before. If I was buying a truck brand new under warranty, I wouldn't have a problem with the automatic at all. Automatics do have some limitations, and they tend to jerk a little here and there, and they got some slip built into them. You kind of have to learn how to drive a truck again. It's kind of weird. Some of them are leggy. One of the problems guys have with Freightliners with their automatic transmissions, or they're automated if you want to get technical, is that the on the top it's all air driven. It's not, and if you get an air leak, you're getting towed. If you got an ABS code, you're getting towed. It's the way they come out set up, it's kind of a mess. When they work great. When they go down great. And that was kind of like, truthfully, like I said before in my old videos, why I went with a manual it was just purely financial. Like I said, when my clutch quit working and everything went down a couple weeks back when I had to go to the shop, the only reason I made it there without a $1,500, it would have been between $1,500 and $2,000 tow bill, was because I had an automatic. So yeah. But I've looked at some very nice Freightliners, and you can, especially for a first truck, if you're not swimming in cash, a Freightliner Cascadia really, I'm not brand loyal. I love a Peterbilt. I love a Peterbilt. I think the storage is good. I think it's comfortable to sit in. I love to drive them. They ride well. Uh, this Kenworth here is an out and back truck. It strikes me as more of a truck for a guy that's going to be basically home a couple times a week or home on the weekends. Very limited storage. Probably the worst refrigerator setup known to man. But it surprisingly does everything it's supposed to do, and it does it well. So I've been very pleased with it. I've got the gauge package on it. Got the really nice, I don't have any smart nav or anything in it, but it's got a very nice stereo in it. Got the smart wheel. I don't like the smart wheel, and I don't like the Jake on the column. I prefer the Jake to be on the dash and the trolley bar to be on the column, but they're opposite. But that's just the way the truck was ordered. The only other problem I had, which is a personal problem, is the power outlets in the front on this Kenworth. I don't like the way they're set up. There's only 2 of them, so I actually, on the side one, I actually mounted a 3-bar and mounted it with a double-sided tape to the side. It's that Gorilla tape. It hasn't let go. Plugged it in so I can actually have 4 different ports there, and I don't have to use the front power port, because if you use the front power port the way things are, you can't use the cup holder. Well, you can, but you'll spill everything. So, but in the back, you know, I got a power port here, I got a power port here, I've got a TV mount, and you can put a microwave up here, and the table rotates, so that's not bad. But like I said, you know, if you're looking for a good used truck, there's a lot of trucks out there. You just have to find the one that fits your need. And needs will vary. Like I said, I didn't want a condo, but I ran the numbers on this and talked to a buddy of mine who could do a background check on it, and it came out flawless. One of the things that PACCAR was having a problem with on the 579s and some of these Aero trucks was something called dusting. And, well, first of all, the McDonald filters they put in there are absolute junk. The McDonald filters, the OEM filters, let dirt in, and the dirt is actually, once it seats to the filter, is actually part of the filtering process. It uses the dirt to catch other dirt. It's insane. And people started noticing that the way that the setups was, they started getting a lot of dirt in the inlet tube into the engine on the other side of the filter, hence dusting. And it was basically causing a premature engine failure. About 650,000 miles, you're shelling an engine. And so that was one of the things that we were looking for, and I need to talk to the guy and find out what some of the contributing factors, or what they look for. But there's certain things that pop up on the diagnostic that indicate dusting. You don't have a problem with the Baldwin or the Fram air filters. It doesn't have that problem. It's actual. And believe it or not, with the McDonald filters, you actually can damage the engine by changing the air filter too often. It was, once I started to learn, that's idiotic, but it's true. It's the dumbest thing I'd ever heard, and yet it's a fact. So I don't run any of those cheap McDonald OEM air filters. I run either Fram or Baldwin. But if you buy a truck, like I said, if you buy a truck that's got 500, 600,000 out on the original clutch, like I said, you can expect to put a clutch in, an automatic or a manual. Now, I did talk to if you can't find the truck you want, but you find one you like, with the engine, but it's an automatic, but you want a manual. Believe it or not, for about $3,000, you can get it converted. The problem is that you're going to be running like 263s in the back, or even worse than that. So you're going to have basically an overdrive, and you're going to have to start it off in first gear with a little bit of slip every time. Actually not. You're going to start off in low. So that's something to think about. But yeah, that's a thing. So a buddy of mine, his truck he bought with an automatic, he's got a 10-speed, and he's got like 164s or something. It's something insanely high like that. At 82 miles an hour, he's running 1,500. It's crazy. So yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. I'd never heard of a rear end geared that high, but hey. But that means 10th gear is an overdrive at that point. So one of the things that I've been noticing that companies are finally starting to embrace is the split sleeper. The 2 and 8 or 3 and 7. And I've talked about this before. If you really understand how those work, you can really maximize your day. You can do a lot of miles a day in a 65 mile an hour governed truck if you keep that door closed. The most I've ever done in a 65 mile an hour truck, I actually drove till 2 in the morning, stopped for 8, drove, stopped for 2, and finished it up at midnight. And I got 816 miles in a 24-hour period. No, it was 832, but I actually had a break in there, but I drove past midnight. It was one of those weird deals that just kind of worked out. I shut down at 2 o'clock on the nose in the morning, did my break, and then just hammered it out, and took a 2-hour break later in the day and shut down at midnight. Yeah, it worked. But the most I've ever done in a straight 65 mile an hour truck, I've got about 706 out of it. That was always fun to see how far I could make it go, but to get that, you've really got to stay with it, and it's weird, in a 65 mile an hour truck, you can get 690, 695 easy every day, all day. But to break that last 5 miles is tough. I don't know why. It just is. You just kind of at the end of it. So if you want that extra, if you want to hit the 700, you really just gotta work it. I don't recommend this. My red truck, the most I've ever done in my red truck in an 11-hour period is 770, but I left Rawlins, Wyoming, and shut down in Fernley, Nevada, and that's 80 miles an hour all the way across there. So that was kind of cheating, but you can do a lot of miles at 65 miles an hour if you're governed there. I know with winter coming on, it sounds goofy to say this, but even if you're stuck in a little inclement weather, and I got a rule: if I'm below 45, I park it. The thing about 45 miles an hour is you can still get 450, 500 miles a day at 45 miles an hour. And I'm not going to lie, that is a long, tiring 450 miles. I've done that. What was it? 8 years ago? 8, 9 years? No, it was 9 years ago. Wow. got stuck in the winter coming out of Chicago, and we were on ice and packed up all the way from Chicago all the way to into Iowa into 380, and we were doing 35-40 the whole way, and just it was nuts. People were just not exercising anything smart, but it was really weird. Once we got onto 380, traffic cleared up, the road dried up, and we just took off. It was the most idiotic thing ever, but it's just part of driving. So, what other questions anybody got out there? I'll typically do these for an hour, so about 8 o'clock we're going to shut down, but until then I'm open for some questions. What other YouTubers you watch? I watch several I find interesting. I've met a couple in person, talked to some on the phone, some I only know from YouTube, but it's always fun to get to know the community. And everybody's got their own experience and their own ideas about what they want to do, and that's really cool. I'm always interested in that. I know with it getting colder, we're probably going to start seeing everybody's got a dash cam now, so we'll probably start seeing a whole lot of accident videos. Hopefully none of mine. So I'm going to be doing a review here soon. I've always wanted to do this. I've been looking for a coffee pot for the truck, and I found one of these Road Pros. We'll be doing a review on that here soon. And just reading the label, reading the box, yeah, I can tell it's terrible. See, reusable filter, which is always a good idea. 20-ounce capacity. It'll make this. Includes scoop and mounting bracket. It brews in 20 minutes. So I can get one of these in 20 minutes. But it runs off 12 volts. So there's a product out there and it looks absolutely terrible and it's affordable, but I'm seeing them everywhere. I love buying them and trying them out because I truthfully want to see if are they really that terrible, or is it actually pretty good. One of the other terrible things that I did was they were selling them at a truck stop. Big old Chinese-made radar detector for $29.95, and it was the most hideous thing I'd ever. I said this has to be bad, and I did a review on it a couple years back, and it still makes me laugh at just the box, 1,000-yard range, and I'm like, oh, by that time he's already seen you, you know. If I've learned anything watching Vin Wiki and all the Cannonball stuff, C to C, 2904 and all that stuff right there, you either need a red line or a Valentine, and even then, yeah. So I don't recommend running a radar detector in a truck, but I know guys do. I'm actually planning on bringing my radar gun out and mounting it up in the truck for when I'm in the truck stop, just to show people how fast people really are driving through these truck stops. It's you take your life in your own hands out here anymore, and that's one of the byproducts of an automatic truck. Believe it or not, you drive them like cars. So a lot of guys, they just get into it and they just put it to the floor like they do anything, and they don't think about how fast they're going. And they're doing 25, 30 miles an hour through these parking lots because they're just not thinking about it. And nothing against them, they're just not thinking about it because they're not paying attention to what they're doing. They're just heading to the exit, and they're just putting it to the floor. And that's a kind of, I wish, I've been thinking about doing a video about driving aids. We have all of these collision avoidance and GPSs and things like that in the truck, and they're supposed to be to assist, but what they've done is replaced talent and skill with automation. And in some ways it works, in most ways it does not, because the person starts relying way too much on technology rather than their own wits. Nobody knows how to get anywhere anymore. Their GPSs are their lifeline. They rely on the automatic braking, the adaptive cruise. They just don't pay attention. You wouldn't believe how many guys I see going down the road driving trucks cross-legged. How many people going down the road, like teenage girls are the worst offenders. I'll see a teenage or a young girl going down the road sitting in her car seat cross-legged with one hand on the wheel and one hand on the phone like that. And they're just oblivious. So I've been wanting to get with the state police to sponsor a ride-along for them, so they could come out here in this truck with a camera and literally film what we're seeing. They don't see what we see. We see into cars, they look at cars. If it's below the visual line, they don't see it. If it's below the window line or below the dash line, they don't see it. As you know, in trucks, we see pretty much everything. Sometimes to our detriment. Yeah. I've seen bad things. I've seen funny things. But sometimes I think that if we were, as drivers, were able to get a little more perspective, or able to give a little more perspective to, officers and stuff like that. And, like down in Florida and Tennessee, they actually have semi-trucks that are police cars now. So they're seeing things. They're starting to, at least. And that's nice. But the problem, if I have 20 cars passing me, 19 of them have a cell phone in their hand. And you wouldn't believe how many truck drivers I still see just going down the road with a phone to their ear like this. Guys, get a headset. Get a stereo with a mic in it. Get headphones with a little cord. Do whatever you need to do. But for heaven's sakes, don't stick it to your ear like that. I mean, that's like an $850 ticket in a lot of places now. I mean, and that's where it starts. If you're lucky, the $850 ticket is all you get. And the way the judges and stuff are now, there's no getting out of that. They are not forgiving. When it comes to CDLs and truck rules and stuff like that, unless you get a real good lawyer and an understanding judge, they're just not giving any leeway to truck drivers anymore. We're supposed to be professional, and we should know better. And when it comes to cell phones, we really do. And look, we all know I'm an offender. The majority of you are too. We've all done it. We all do it. Doesn't make it right. And I've been really putting it down a whole lot more lately because, well, I'm starting to see a whole lot more people getting in trouble for doing that. it's starting to be an epidemic. We've been what is that? I know there's been a lot of fear mongering, especially after this last election, about tariffs. Uh, I brought it up in a video, and I'll just reiterate it here. We had the tariffs when 45 started. In fact, they increased a lot more domestic shipping. It didn't hurt us at all. And if it's the same way, it's not going to hurt us at all this time. What if you read into the ruling and what they want to do or what they did the last time? It wasn't about balanced trade. It was all about balanced trade. It wasn't about charging us and charging them and charging us. So if you have a balanced trade, equal outgoing, equal in, there's no tariffs because you have balanced trade. So it's on a sliding scale. So let's not do too much fear mongering on that. I'll be interested to see what happens, but I think it'll be real positive, honestly, just because a lot of domestic freight will start popping again. And like I've said before, the one thing a lot of people seem to forget is this isn't Chinese companies. These are Americans hiring Chinese companies to have American goods built over there and shipped back. So it's we're just getting the same thing built cheaper. But so I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's just what we're seeing right now is just a mild correction, and we always have a little boost in freight towards the end of the year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Like I said, I don't really talk about politics at all on this channel. Unfortunately, politics and trucking kind of have to coincide together in a lot of cases, and it's a bipartisan issue. If we could, us as truck drivers, if we could actually put the Republican Democrat BS aside and actually band together as truck drivers and agree on some things, because the majority of us all want the same thing anyways. We just want to work, we want to make money, and we want to go about our happy, and I don't know anybody that doesn't want that. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I've been thinking about doing a video about deregulation, some historical stuff. I love historical stuff like that. I also love conspiracy theories. I was going to try to figure out how to do a conspiracy theory from about Eisenhower to Nixon involving the JFK assassination. I tied it to Watergate loosely. But when it comes to trucking, deregulation and the CDL and all of that through there, it's a fascinating time of history in trucking. So I've been really thinking about doing something along those lines historically. And my personal opinion, as I've said before, and I might expound on this, is this basically was the government busting the union out for their buddies to create general freight. I think it's pretty much as simple as that, because when you create a general freight, you could really start buying more and more trucks and create. One of the unintended consequences of general freight was the mega carriers. And it ended up busting the true owner-operators out of business. A lot of them did. And then, of course, the union and the Teamsters over the next 25 years just really started dying a slow, painful death. The Teamsters still exist. They're still out there. But they are nothing like they were, 40 years ago. So it's a fascinating story. If you guys ever want to do history on that, look it up, read about it. It's quite interesting. Of course, after that time, Jimmy Hoff had already disappeared, and there was just a lot of. When you get towards Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter and that era there before Reagan, like when I was a kid, the Vietnam War had just ended, and the Vietnam vets were still in their 20s when I was a kid. So the country was kind of healing, and there was so many changes going on. Everybody was really wanting to move past all of that back there and move forward. And I think a lot of people meant well when they passed a lot of these things, kind of just getting rid of the old guard and moving into the future. I think there was a lot of good intention. I think there was a lot of corruption. And you could probably go 50-50 on either of that, really. Of course, the idiotic thing is a lot of those lawmakers that were around then are still in government, which is idiotic. But that being said, one of these days do a deep dive, read a book on it, audio book if you want. There's a bunch of YouTube videos. Actually, go back and listen to the speech that Jimmy Carter gave about deregulation. It's quite interesting. And he was and still is a very interesting man, even if he didn't approve of his politics. Red was telling me when she was very young, her uncle used to run a Piggly Wiggly in Americus, Georgia, and Jimmy Carter and her uncle used to drink moonshine in the back. So it's probably back in the early 70s. Anyhow, it's a kind of a funny story, but it was Georgia in the 70s. So we got a few more minutes I'm going to be on here. If anybody has any questions, anybody wants to know anything, kick them out now. I've just been rambling on about a bunch of things that have been on my mind. I know Thanksgiving's coming up, and hopefully you guys can get home for it if you want to be home. I used to work all the holidays. I'd be home one and gone the other, and it seems like it's just the last probably 8 years there just hadn't been any real freight over Christmas and New Year's. Don't get me wrong, parking is awesome. I can find a place to park everywhere those times, but for some reason I just haven't been able to. It just hasn't seemed to work. Don't know why, but just freight hadn't been moving. So we're probably gonna come home for Christmas and stay home till the end of the year this year. I wasn't gonna come home for Thanksgiving, but apparently my mom, my brother-in-law, my sister, and my sister-in-law are all coming to the house, and Mom's like, "Hey, you need to be here." I said, okay. So hopefully if you're out on the road, you can make it home, spend some time with family. Quality time's important. As truck drivers, we need that. You can't live out here in the truck 100% of the time. You'll go nuts. So other than that, if you get up here to Wisconsin and Minnesota, there's Quick Trip up here, the KWIKs, they have been just killing it. They're starting to pop up all up through Wisconsin and Minnesota. They've always been up there a lot, but they've moved into Iowa. They've moved into Sioux Falls. They're just building like crazy in Wisconsin and Minnesota right now. And as travel centers go and truck stops, they're actually nice. They've got decent delis, so probably some of the best coffee out here on the road, and they're always clean. The travel centers have showers in them now. Plenty of parking, Catskills, the whole works. But what I really like about them is they have a lot of fresh food there, and they got a lot of selection, which is something that's starting to sorely lack in places like Love's and Pilot and TA's. The selection of things is really starting to dwindle. You just have a lot of the same thing. So, yeah. I do know here Circle K bought Holiday, and so all the holidays are slowly becoming Circle K's here, and they're building across the highway where the old Windmill truck stop was here off Cliff Avenue and I-90 here in Sioux Falls. They're building a brand new Circle K truck stop up there, so that'll be interesting when that opens up. And like I posted it on my Facebook site, the Love's in Wichita opened. I've been there a couple times, and Love's is really starting to step up the game. They have a truck wash. They're doing washouts now, which is nice. They built a 2-bay truck wash with a 3-bay Speedco next to it and a bunch of parking over there, and then in front of it is the truck stop with a bunch of parking there too. So, not bad. Am I missing the comments? Let's see. Yeah. Oh, there you are. Yeah, you didn't pop up, Rob. Rob, he is with Trucking Resources, and if you want to see a bunch of stuff with historical stuff and stuff like that, he's actually got a really good channel. I enjoy watching his stuff. A 125 rear. Wow. That's going to be that truck is that's going to be a West Coast truck there for sure. Yeah. Some of these were supposed to be popping up, and a lot of these didn't pop up like they should have. So I apologize if I didn't get for you. This comment about drop visors. What a lot of cops are doing now is basically if it yeah, if the if it's in the path of the windshield wipers, like Indiana had a thing, like if it was in the path of the windshield wipers, they were writing you a ticket. So there's a lot. It's kind of weird. There's a lot of generic laws and things going on around here. It's drop visors have really been kind of a sore subject. I need to read up on it. I do know that I don't think they can drop more than about 4 inches. There's when you get your windshield, look in the corner, you'll see about this far down, there will be a little line and on each side, and that's actually the tent line. That's as far as you're legally allowed to go down with the tent. But like I've always said, the tickets are all up to the discretion of the arresting officer. It's That's why I always say that, just because cops are weird, fickle people. Um, One cop will let everything go. One cop will let nothing go. One cop will let everything go on Thursday and write you up for everything on Friday. They are people that have good days and bad days, and arguing with them on the side of the road is never a good way to get things done. So if you get a ticket for something like that and you know you're right, just hire a lawyer. Yes, it's expensive, but arguing with a cop and having him write you 3 more tickets because he's pissed off is no way to. It's no way to get things done, because that also will go into the report along with the 3 more tickets that he writes you. Smile, yes sir. Get on Ticket Clinic or one of those other sites. Get a lawyer. Have them handle it. Chances are they can have it fixed or thrown out for little or no money. Truthfully, even if you spend $1,000. Oh, okay. What a warning ticket? You can fight a warning ticket. Now, here's the thing. They say you can't, you actually can, but you have to go through a process. You have to submit and challenge it. Believe it or not, you can fight a warning ticket, but it's a whole long process. Because I think they had to allow you to do that just because you're not, they're not really warning tickets. All they did was write you a ticket and waive the fine, but the penalty is still there. The points are still there. So you can challenge it, but there's a process that you have to go through, and I've looked into it briefly, but I have never really gotten too far into it. You're under the misconception that you can't fight when you actually can. Because when I got those 3 tickets or those 3 warnings a while back, I was going to challenge them, and I realized that I really didn't have a leg to stand on, because technically I was over on my log. I was speeding, and I was following too close. Now, here's the thing about the speeding. I wasn't doing anything anybody else was doing, and I was getting passed. The following too close, it was just me getting over, and the minute I got over, I backed off. If you've ever been down on I-24 east of Clarksville, it's a madhouse between Clarksville and Nashville. That cop was you can ask the cop, but if he's already written you up, you're just, you can tell the cop to write you a ticket, but he's going to do what he's going to do. So, and you're going to have the same amount of points whether you got a warning or not. And if you lose the challenge, it ends up being then you got a big old fine. And here's the thing, I ended up with all 21 points, and it was like reckless driving points for on my CSA for 1 minute and 24 seconds over on my 11. I was going into a truck stop and couldn't get into a spot fast enough. And yeah, I got dinged. Dude wrote me up. And I know why he wrote me up. He was just being a prick. But he was walking up to the truck being just an absolute, he was puffing up, and then he turned around and came about this far from that camera on my mirror. And he pulled me over because I was in my pink truck at the time. I was just sticking out like a sore thumb. And the minute he saw that camera that far, he gave me this wicked look, and I knew I was screwed. He just started writing. So Yeah, it's been about a year and a half, 2 years for that. I've got one more year, and all those points will be gone, thankfully. But it was a little rough there for the first year because 2 weeks after that, I got a DOT inspection going into a scale, and he found a brake chamber that was barely leaking. Uh, well, yeah, and that's the thing. You can tell the cop whatever you want. Uh, all he has to do is refuse to sign and give you the ticket, and you don't have to turn it in or anything. So it's kind of one of those weird things. That's most of these things you don't even have to sign anymore, because that was a loophole a lot of people were using to get out of a ticket. I didn't sign it, I don't accept it. Well, I'll tell you a quick story from my youth. Growing up, for some reason, my family had this weird attraction that we ended up getting to know a bunch of these sovereign citizen idiots. And don't get me wrong, they were nice people, but they were strange. And we got to know a bunch of them. And this was the kind of crap they would pull. The system is there for a reason. And done properly, the system will protect you. Done improperly, the system will screw you. You can't sit there and argue with a cop about being on the road, how you have a right to be there in a car. No, you really don't. It's a taxpayer-funded road. Driving is a privilege. Well, you're inhibiting my right to travel, they would say. Well, then get out and walk. Ride a bicycle. Get a moped under 50 cc's. Do whatever you want to do, but you can't do it in a car. And it was just... That kind of mentality was just one of those things that always struck me as these people were their own worst enemy. And so out here in the truck, don't be your own worst enemy. If the cop is only going to do what the cop's going to do. That's the long and short of it. If you make his life hard and you start pissing him off, he's going to make your life hard. The one thing that I've learned about police over the last 35 years of getting pulled over, and like I said, I started driving in 1989. I drove my first semi in 1996. And the one thing I've learned about police officers in all of that time is that they don't want any more problems than they're presented. If they're going to write you a ticket, they're going to write you a ticket. If you see they're undecided and you're friendly and nice and apologetic, and I'm not saying you got to kiss their butt, but you just acknowledge what was wrong and you're just apologetic, but you're straight up with them, half the time they'll just let you go. There's no need to be mad or combative or anything like that. Like when I got that brake chamber, I didn't know it was leaking. I just had the truck into the shop for an inspection. In fact, the guy complimented how clean it was underneath it and how well taken care of. He says, but you got a little bit of a leak. I was like, we didn't know that. Well, now we do, and I have 12 more points on my CSA. So I took it up got it up to Willow Springs 3 hours later. The shop was open. $115, I think it was, and 35 minutes later, I had a new brake chamber on there, and guy signed it, and we were golden. Like I said, just don't argue with them. It's just not worth it. A lot of these things dealing with cops out here on the road, and all these stories are just that. The majority of them are stories. If I can't verify it by a couple of different, I know it's just crap, honestly. You wouldn't believe how many times I've heard the same story with a twist over the last 35 years. Especially 25 out here. It's just it, just a lot of times you just have to smile and nod and walk on and just leave it alone. But most of the time, like I said, when it comes to police officers, just yes sir, no sir, do what he wants, and in 10 minutes you both are on your way, and that's all any of us really want, honestly. What's this guy gonna run into? Oh, apparently everything. All right. Oh, goody. He's gonna back in next to me. The clearinghouse getting rid of 177. What clearinghouse? I don't know anything about that. I do know one thing that bothers me right now is they're talking a lot about broker transparency, and I'm going to tell you this: if you think rates are low now, bring on broker transparency. It will. They will. You'll bottom out. This is not a good thing. You do not want broker transparency. Everybody says, "Oh, we need to know what the." No, you don't. It's these companies hire these brokers to move their freight. They do it for a price, and the brokers broker it out for a price. And when you start talking about broker transparency, it will tank. It's not a good thing. You're gonna start seeing a lot of double brokering after that and things of that nature. It's just, yeah, it's just I don't. It's not gonna be any good. And this is what I talked about at the beginning. It was a lot of guys are just not seeing the big picture. They're looking at trucking through a very narrow scope. And it's kind of like when everybody talks about minimum wage. Yeah, it all depends on what the prohibitive status is. A lot of the prohibitive statuses have to do with people not having valid health cards, and that's what the clearinghouse is doing. And that's getting that right there is because there's a lot of guys that shouldn't be driving that are driving that don't have valid health cards. What I don't like is when when FMCSA went and made everything retroactive when it came to DUIs. There was guys that had a clean driving record for 25 years, and they'd been a little rough back in the day, and they had a couple of DUIs, and suddenly they have two DUIs pop up. I had one guy that had two DUIs pop up that are 20 and 25 years old. And he said flat out, if I ever lose my CDL or my health card, he says, I can never renew my CDL. He says, I'll be out. He's grandfathered in, but he has to maintain his health card and maintain his CDL, or he's done. So, yeah, you have to be, it's a, you gotta watch that. Sitting there. So one of the problems that we're having with brokers right now, and this is, I've said this before. Everybody says cheap freight, cheap freight. All they're doing is cheap freight. And I was like, well, here's the problem. And this goes back to a lot of these like Chicago companies with a lot, well, and I hate diving into this part. A lot of the foreigners that are coming in, they don't understand the system. So they see a load, they just grab it. before all this really started taking up space, was you'd get, these brokers aren't putting anything out. Oh, yeah, that too. Yes. Uh, a lot of these brokers aren't putting out anything any cheaper than they ever did. But the difference is it used to sit around on a load board for 2 or 3 days. And nobody would haul it because it was cheap. And now, if it hits a load board, it's there 15, 20 minutes. So they just throw it out there to see what'll happen. And this is what's happening. Guys are not letting it marinate. Excuse me. They're not letting it marinate on the load board for 2 or 3 days like they should. If you let that 69, 70 cent a mile freight marinate on the load board and for 2 or 3 days, I'll guarantee you the next day it'll be at $1. And I guarantee you the day after that, it'll be at $1.50. I mean, they're going to start raising it till they get somebody to bite. But if you're getting guys to bite at freight at 70 cents a mile, if I were running a brokerage and I had a whole bunch of guys willing to haul $3 a mile freight for 70 cents a mile, I'd let them haul it. I mean, why wouldn't you? And this is the thing. If you have broker transparency, I'm going to tell you right now, the rate will be the rate. There will be no discussion, and it will be low. And that's going to be it. The rate will be the rate. There'll be a low rate. There'll be no fuel. There will be no nothing. It will be the rate. And because the brokers are going to have no room to move, and they're going to have to take their cut because, well, they're getting paid to move that freight. I mean, that's what they do. So one of the things that kind of bugs me is the fuel surcharge. A lot of straight up brokers just aren't paying it, or they say the fuel is in. If you're getting freight for 85 cents a mile and they say the fuel's in with the rate, it's not. And I am of the opinion that if you're getting fuel surcharge and you're leased onto a company, you should get 100%. And the surcharge should never be a part of the rate. The rate should be listed and the surcharge should be listed with it. And what really irritates me is a lot of these math wizards, well, they said, well, you have to put it all together, all in, you're getting paid $1.85, I was like, yeah, but all out, I'm getting paid $1.35. So, so fuel is a big thing. I'm averaging right now between 80 with my discounts between 80 and $1.20 off a gallon. So I'm doing pretty good there. I do know that with the new administration coming in, if they do what I think they're going to do, the price of fuel is going to crash and my fuel surcharge is going to go way down. Your medical cards are going through clearinghouses now, through the state. That's that's a misconception. The medical card is tied in with everything. They'll pull your medical card, and like in Kansas now, where I'm at, you used to have to take it down to the go get your long form, take it down to the DMV, fill out a paperwork. Now the guy that does the examination goes through the state, and they call it a clearinghouse. It's the same clearinghouse for all of that. Everything goes to one place now. He fills it out, hits a button, gives you a copy. You're good to go. You don't have to go down to the DMV anymore. And they're trying to make that all 50 states now. And when I go in for my DOT physical, I think next year, I won't have to go to the DMV this next time. Because they're all going to do it through the computer. And so, yeah, the clearinghouse is the clearinghouse now. It all goes through the state and the FMCSA. It all. What's amazing is I was talking to the scale master there in Oklahoma one time. And one of these days, if I can actually get a hold of somebody down there, I would love to do a video in there inside the scale to show everybody how it works. What they told me the technology in that scale is now, before you even exit, they've taken a picture of the side of your truck, they've taken a picture of you, and they've all your DOT numbers, everything, and within 2 seconds, they've pulled you up. And they know it's you inside that truck. So it's a very real deal to just be square, especially. And if you're crossing that and they pull you up and know you're in that truck with a CDL with no valid health card, you'll get pulled in. I know in the state I can have I don't have to have a health card if I work in state with a CDL, but I have to go down and I have to fill out a form, but I cannot leave the state and do any interstate trucking. It's all intrastate. Basically, what a lot of farmers do that so they can haul their stuff back and forth. A lot of these farmers have DOT numbers, but they're non-commercial. So it's kind of one of those weird things. But yeah, you can't leave the state. So yeah, it's driving without a health card right now is a big deal. One of the things they're battling out in western Kansas right now is Mexican trucks. I'll just be straight up. These guys out there in these local trucks, a lot of them are hauling grain, mostly hauling grain. Illegal tags, no insurance, no CDLs. It's becoming an epidemic out there, and for some reason the DOT's not doing anything. They're just letting it slide, and it's starting to wear on everybody because they're causing havoc. And yet the DOT has a quota. I don't care what you say, they have to pull so many people over and give so many inspections a month. Anyone that says any officer that tells you differently is lying. And so they're going for the low-hanging fruit. They're pulling over farmers they know that are legal and have it's becoming quite a racket out there. Saw a picture of a guy had a homemade license plate on the front of his truck, and for some reason that didn't seem to be a problem. Yet, me missing a screw in a light is a big deal. But yeah, go figure. Yeah, there's a lot of things that they want to do that are just what I was getting at is that a lot of these things sound good on paper, but when you don't see the big picture, what it ends up being is like minimum wage. People think that having more money will increase their buying power. No, actually, all it does is increase inflation, because people don't understand money. They don't understand the function of money or the purpose of money or how it works. The only thing people understand is what can I buy with what I have in my pocket at this immediate moment. So they equate that with more money means I can buy more things. Well, no, it's when you increase the baseline, everything else has to rise accordingly. And it's a slippery slope. You just have to see the big picture, and that's I talk about that a lot. Most of these things that we're talking about, guys think are great because all they see is how it benefits them at this particular moment. uh, what's that? Yep, that's what they do. Pull over who they know will pay. Um, they don't. When you go to the DMV with it, it still goes to the clearinghouse. It just goes to the DMV. That's why you don't have to carry your long form with you anymore. You should still have it. But people think in the approximate and the immediate of what they can do at this particular moment, and without really considering the long-term effects of what they're asking for. And if you do that, a lot of the immediate will suck, but the long-term will be fairly rewarding. So it's just food for thought. It's This business is very fluid, and that's one thing I've tried to impress upon people, is that just because it worked 25 years ago doesn't mean it'll work now. We've been sitting there in the last 25 years, the changes I've seen in trucking is in a constant state of flux, constantly changing. And if you want to make it, you got to change with it. I mean, most of these businesses that went under because they claim because of e-logs, they were on the verge of going under long before e-log. It just e-log forced a lot of changes that a lot of guys just didn't want to be ready for. And it wasn't just e-log. There's been so many different changes that have happened. Like I said, from guys blame deregulation, and then they blame the CDL, and then they blamed e-log, and then there's a dozen things in between all of that they blame. But truthfully, it's because they failed to realize that trucking is constantly in a state of movement. It's a very fluid business, and if you can figure out how to stay on the leading edge of it, it's quite a fascinating place to be. But it does involve looking at the big picture. So, and just really studying what's out there. It's a really interesting business once you really start studying the business side of it. And like I said, study the history of it too. It's quite fascinating. One of these days, I have my great grandfather's chauffeur's license from 1957, and he got it renewed about 4 months before he passed away. And it's quite interesting the way they did things back then. And I've still got an old license plate and a bingo card and all that. And one of these days, I'll do another video about things of the past like that, if I dig all that stuff out. But it's quite interesting. So I think another 2-3 minutes, and we're gonna pack it up here. So if you got any questions, let me know. Ooh. Yeah, I had to go to the Kansas, decided to participate in the clearinghouse this year. So the doctor entered all of my stuff just like you did in PA. But I had to go down, like you, I had to go down to the DMV and fill out that paper. And I think this year, or at I don't know if it was the beginning of last year or the beginning of this year, they were joining the clearinghouse, and it was so I don't have to go down there anymore. But I'll find out when I go in for my test. Hopefully I don't need glasses this year. I'm always on the verge of I've been on the verge of needing glasses since I was 10. So, yeah, maybe so. Um, well, anyhow, I'm gonna get out of here. It's time for me to start packing it in. I about to say I got to get up early, but then I remembered I don't. I got to call in tomorrow, and hopefully we can start heading back towards the house for the holidays. I'll take a few days off, and uh, I used to make a cooking video on the holidays, and a few of my buddies used to like watching it because it was less about cooking and more about watching me get tanked in the kitchen. Um, but I always enjoy that. My how to make baklava video is my mother's recipe. She's Armenian, and it was less about baklava and more about the bottle of Buffalo Soldier I had, or Horse Soldier. Yeah, that was a yeah. So I appreciate you guys. Be safe out there, and as always, I'm always interested in your questions and your input. Um, Rob from Trucking Resources gave me a good idea, and I need to get this set up. And y'all, like I said, you ought to check out his channel. He's got some really neat historical stuff on there. But I need to put an email together for the trucking channel, and that way, if you need to send me an email or message me directly, you can do that. And I gotta figure that out here soon. So, hopefully that'll come here in the next few weeks. So, hey guys, be careful out there. Be straight. Winter's coming. We've already had some snow. I've already had my first snowstorm, so that was fun. And just be safe out there, guys. It's getting colder. Make sure you got your warm weather gear and all that, and your anti-gel and whatnot, and be safe out there, guys. So I appreciate it. We'll catch you guys later.